Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Grassroots Racer. Things have been a bit quiet for me right now, but I'm working on a couple projects and I can't wait to get back competing soon. I spoke to this week's guest a couple of weeks ago, due to he was heading off to Bathurst to race in the Toyota 86 Gazoo Racing Series. So that's why a few times in the podcast he mentions that it's the week before Bathurst. So just to let you guys know, I recorded it a little while ago. But yeah, it was great talking to him about his journey growing up through sprint karting, where to where he's today, gaining a lot of experience and even a few podiums with the Sieders racing team. So, we interviewed Ashton and his father. So that was a really great episode. So if you haven't checked that one out, please go back, like it, because we really do appreciate the support. But on to tonight's episode. It's a big welcome to Reuben Goodall. To kick things off, Reuben, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your motorsport journey, how you first got involved into racing?
Yeah, so firstly, my name's Reuben Goodall. I'm 19 years old, currently compete in the Toyota Gazoo Racing Australian 86 series. Obviously, very popular series for, up and coming talents. And, as I'm sure most of you guys know, it's a very competitive series to be at, and also a good entry level into the race car stuff. In terms of how I first got into motorsport, obviously, like many others, it started off in go-karting. So, when I was younger, it was, going to the hire karts with the family. Obviously, had an absolute blast there. Always loved it. Being from Adelaide, always loved the Adelaide 500 or Clipsal 500. We went every year. So as a kid, I used to watch the supercars go around, and it was always sort of my dream for that. Also, did a lot with the racing games. Like I remember specifically F1 2010. That game got me really into it. Dad bought me a wheel and pedals. So I always loved racing. Obviously, then the hire karts that sort of led into the sprint karts, which we then eventually bought one. Started going to the tracks here in South Australia. And then we joined a team, went into the national levels, Australian Kart Championship. And really it's just, kicked off from there. Had a good results, a couple of good results at AKC. And then obviously the next step was into the 86s, which is where I am at the moment.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So let's go back to your early days. You mentioned you started at hire karting. What was it about hire karting that drew you towards it? And did those early experiences help shape the start of your racing career?
I think the high karting stuff was like really getting the feel for it. Obviously before it was just on the simulator and it was just, watching races in real life, whereas the high karts was the first time really controlling it for yourself and feeling it through your body and through your back, and the smell, the noise, all that sort of stuff was a bit more surreal in high karts. So I think, that really kicked it off for us. And also, you always jump out of the high cart with a smile on your face, whether you're winning or your dad's beating you. So that was always really good fun in my case because I was a little kid. I only weighed about 30 kilos, so I was pretty quick, which helped for the ego. And I was like, Dad, come on, I got records at the higher cut place. Let's get into the sprint carts. So yeah, that was really how it happened.
Yeah. So once you got to sprint karting, how did it all sort of start from there? Did you start locally in Melbourne, or or you? Oh no, you're Adelaide, aren't you? Sorry.
I'm
Um,
like, yeah, no, that's all
yeah.
right.
I was gonna say because I was looking at your page and you've done a fair bit at Todd Road. So how did you sort of
Yeah,
start off in sprint karting, and when did you decide to come to Victoria to race?
yeah. So Victoria was really the first place we went outside of South Australia, obviously being the closest for us. Sydney's obviously a little bit further. Queensland's obviously very far away.
Yeah.
Perth's the other way completely. So Victoria was the closest place for us, which is where we did eventually do the state level stuff. In terms of South Australia, we did a lot at Bolivar Go Kart Club and also Monado Go Kart Club. And I do remember, vividly, I'd be going to the track in my old go kart at the time with my Yamaha motor. It was a little bit outdated. So I went there, and then there was other people going around that were going way way faster, and I was like, well, surely I'm not doing too much too wrong. And there, obviously, there's teams. So we spoke to a team like, what can we do? We want to drive one of these go karts. We can see this kid's going around quick. So what can we do to be like him? And we eventually bought a go kart with that team, which was Zanardi at the time. They were quite a big thing in South Australia at that time. Bought a new engine, which was the Mini Rock motor, which they still run today. And then from there, yeah, we were at the track almost every weekend, throwing tires at it, racing every club day, and just doing as much seat time as we can. Eventually, the Australian Kart Championship round came to South Australia. I think that was round two in 2015. So we were like, all right, we're going to have a crack at this. So it was nationals, but it was also at a track I know very well, my home track, Monado. So, it was a really good place to get in and have a crack. Obviously, we didn't win. We didn't do anything really too special. We were probably just inside the top 20, which, is a bit average, but it was for a first national round. It was all right. We then carried on to do the rest of the series. Obviously, that was really good fun. So then we raced from round two. We raced round three, which I reckon might have been in Ipswich, Queensland, which was obviously quite a distance. Then we did round
Yep.
four in Newcastle, and then the fifth round in Geelong. So we did a lot of travel for that, and we were testing at most of these events and stuff, and really, really throwing a lot of time at it. And towards the end of 2015, I was becoming quite quick, quicker than obviously I'd been in the past before. Then what we did, we committed to nationals for the whole next year, and it's really where I had a big setback in my career. I had an accident at Dubbo, which was around one of the championship, and ended up breaking my arm. So all that progress that we'd had was sort of hindered quite a lot by the injury that I had. Obviously, it took a lot of confidence away. I was already struggling as is because I moved into juniors, which was a new category for me. So, it was hard. I was getting pumped. The karts were a lot faster. The tires were a lot grippier, and all that sort of stuff. And I was really struggling. And then obviously the arm breaking, that was a real massive setback for us. So that knocked us out for round one and round two, which we missed. Jumped back in it for round three, which was at our home track again, Minardo. And yeah, we did really struggle in that category. So it was hard for us. I started seeing a sports psychologist and all that sort of stuff just to try to get my confidence back there. But yeah, from there, it really did take a long time to get back to the front of the pack.
Yeah. I never actually had an accident in karting, which I'm very thankful for. But when I do understand the step up to juniors, so when I was in Cadet 9, at 9 years old, I moved into Cadet 12, and then at 11 years old, I actually moved to junior light. So I was very young. I was racing like
Yeah,
13, 14-year-olds.
11 in junior light. Jeez, I reckon I would have been. I reckon I might have been 12. Or oh yeah, I reckon I would have been 12.
Yeah,
So a little bit older than you. Yeah,
yeah. I was
that was
11
definitely
when I did it, so it was very tricky because you had the
yeah.
bigger kids pushing you around a bit. So
Yeah, so being a new kid on the block, yeah, as you said, you get pushed around quite a lot, especially when you're not well established. Like, you don't have these results behind you that, someone that's won races in cadets have got. I'd never really won anything except obviously just a couple of club days at the time, which isn't really known to the national grid.
yeah,
So that was quite hard in that sense. As I said, I was seeing a sports psychologist as well because it was really hard, as well as being in the go kart every week. It still wasn't really enough for me to get all my confidence back. Like we weren't doing horrible, we weren't coming last, but we really weren't where we should have been for the amount of effort we were putting in. Which it could have been a little bit down to the go kart that we're in as well. It was a bigger size go kart for the category,
mm,
which is sort of something that wasn't so traditional. But that's what we were with. We had to work with what we had. So then the next year, 2017, we actually stepped into a different go-kart, same brand, but just a smaller model. And that's really where we started to get the traction back and that sort of stuff, where we were cementing ourselves in the top 15 every sort of national race. And that was 2017 where we did that. Did a full year then. And then yeah, that's really where we got back to it.
yeah, that's awesome, man. I did actually find that to be true. Like when I was racing go karts, the skinnier go kart you had, the less bulky go kart, it was sort of better. But now I look at go karting these days, and they're all running fat carts, and I'm like, oh, geez, I don't remember them being like that because I remember if you ran an Arrow X4, um, which is sort of my generation of car, it was really skinny, and that's what you wanted. Um, but yeah, these days they're huge.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, I think, is because they've got rid of the KA4 category and they've obviously got a bit more power now with
Yeah.
KA3. But like the tires as well. I don't know if you've driven on them, but they have like stone much grip. Like every day that
All
you
right.
drive them, your ribs are sore, your neck's sore, all that stuff. So I think because of that, a lot of the stuff's been changing. And also, like the European support wasn't there for those smaller go karts that in our time were what people were running, like a 101 as they call
Yeah.
it. That really wasn't a traditional go-kart for the Europeans, so they didn't have too much care about it. So yeah, they've changed up that category now, obviously, but that's back in juniors. I haven't done that in 5 odd years. So
Yeah. Yeah, I did 1 year of juniors before stepping up to cars. So as you probably heard earlier, like my dad was very when I told him I wanted to race, he's like, well, we're gonna get you in a car as early as possible. So he stepped me up quite quickly. So I sort of did one and 2 year stints in go-karting, and then that's when I
yeah,
finished up in 2019. Um
hmm
so it's but yeah, go-karting's super competitive. Like once you get into it properly, it's so hard to always find yourself up the front, because you just got to keep up with everyone.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Like, I feel like if I could go back on it, I would have wanted to do something similar. Like, I always, you know, I'm a very confidence-based driver, so the results that I get really do help, all that sort of stuff for me. But I was always like I was relatively old in juniors. Like, I had mates that were younger than me, but they were racing in seniors, and I was still in juniors at 15. So like, I think because I had this like sort of rough start to my juniors, it sort of put me behind a couple of years. Like, and remembering like a couple of drivers that would go up like real early. I remember specifically like James Wharton and Kai Allen, for example. They were always the youngest in their categories. James was, I think he was probably, I don't even know how old he was, but he was young in juniors. And same thing with Kai in seniors. Kai was really young, and Kai in juniors and seniors, they were all extremely young, and they were still performing at the same level of these people 2 or 3 years older. Which I think, like, looking at it now, they're both. See, Kai's racing at the Bathurst 1000 next weekend, which is amazing, and then James is
Mm.
obviously doing some pretty cool things in Europe as well. So I think that's probably something that I would have wanted to go back on and go, yeah, maybe moving up a little bit earlier and giving yourself a bit more of a challenge is the better thing to do. Maybe it did cost them a couple of race wins, couple of championships, and that sort of stuff. But realistically, in the long term, I think that was probably the best thing. And I think the same thing for me going to cars as well. Like, I didn't go into cars until I was 17, I reckon, and that's just when I first started doing laps in a car. When I first started racing 86s, I was 18. So again, already behind what a lot of people had been doing.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think going back on it, if I could move up earlier, that's probably what I would have wanted to do.
yeah. And it's just a simple thing of that arm injury that put you out for such a long time. Like not just physically, like mentally as well. It can really mess with you sometimes. So to be put back, what would you say you put back almost a year with that?
Yeah, probably a year and a half
Yeah,
even. It was a pretty big struggle. But I still had the passion for racing. I loved
yeah,
it so much, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it did throw us back a little bit, even further than we already were. So because I didn't start quite as early as others as well. I started when I was 10, whereas
yeah,
a lot of people started when they were 6 or even 7. Which again is another 3 or 4 years worth of experience. That's almost invaluable. You can have the best engine, the best go kart, and the best team, but without those extra couple of years experience, you can really struggle with it.
yeah. It's yeah. Like I definitely understand that because I started when I was 8, I believe. I did my first
Yeah,
year, so that was 2015. I started in Cadet 9, and yeah, I did notice that once I started racing more state and national stuff, if you weren't a part of a team or something like that, you'd actually struggle a lot because you need that sort of support behind you. And if you're not running with the top guys, you probably won't be near the front. So
yeah,
yeah, that's where I found
yeah,
I struggled a little bit.
yeah, 100%. Like, that's like, I feel like that's a thing that a lot of people had, was the support from those top teams where they were running like 6 or 7 go-karts in that category, where they could go out and just perfect the setup, because one driver would be running this axle, the other would be running this front end, the other would be running this seat, and they'd go out and they'd have 7 go-karts with the data and go, okay, which one's the best? Yep, that's the best, with a combination of that. And then for the next session, the go-kart would be perfect. Whereas someone like you or I that was only running 1 or 2 go-karts in a team, it was a little bit harder because you didn't have the data that those guys would have. And as well, you can overlay heaps of different footage with 7 go-karts versus one. You've just sort of got your own, and it's up to you, following other people on the track and seeing what you can do in that way. So
Yeah, it's a very competitive field, but not as it's also quite similar to Toyota 86s, which is what you stepped up into next. So, it's highly competitive. And what actually attracted you and, your family to this particular series, and what do you enjoy most about racing in it?
I think 86s was always the thing that I wanted to sort of kick off in. It was just a matter of when it was going to happen. Obviously, the big thing is the outlay of buying a car. At the time they were about 30 or 40 grand, which was the biggest expense to us. So when I was younger, we really didn't have the budget to be able to do something like that. And unfortunately, as I got to about the age of 17, we did, and that's eventually when we bought one. But it was a no-brainer. The series, like, if you look at the last couple of big names that have gone into supercars, which have been Brock Feeney, Will Brown, Declan Fraser, those three, to name a few, Cam Hill as well. They all raced 86s and they all succeeded in 86s. So, that's really where it is. Like, I think that's compared to any other category, it would have the most amount of, newcomers into supercars in the last couple of years. Obviously, you've had a couple coming from like a Porsche route or whatever. But again, the budget doesn't really accommodate for that, in the entry level stages. So that was really it for us. Obviously, they're all the same car. They're all very, very similar on pace, if not even the same. So if you're a good driver, you're going to do well. And if you're not going to do well. So,
Yep.
it's a really good category just to tell you, do you deserve to be there or do you not? Are you quick? Yes. Keep it going. If you're not, maybe you're not good enough, which is the brutal reality of it. But it's brilliant category for that.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like though when you sort of stepped into it, it was actually a good time because that was before they had the development series, which they released this year. Um, and now for someone like myself, if I wanted to step up, I've got to do the development series first. But at the same time, it's not all bad because, um, you've got to you got to be able to have the talent to be there. Because as harsh as it is, you can't just rock up to the national stage and then drive like crap and ruin it for everyone else by putting it into the wall, red flag in everyone's session. So it's a sort of
Yeah.
it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's bad because it actually wastes a year of your time if you've got to go through the development series to go to the main, but it's also a good thing because it restricts just anyone getting in.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, there's a lot of demand for the category. Obviously, it's not just me that thinks that it's a good category for a stepping stone. It's 50 or 60 different drivers, and obviously you can't have that many cars on track at once. So then they've got to put these things in like the development series. But this year, for example, the racing has been so much better. We've had so many less red flags, so many less safety cars, all that sort of stuff. And it actually gives, every driver a sort of better value for their money. We had a weekend last year where we only did about 10 green flag laps because of red flags and safety cars. And it's like you're spending all this money. It was at Townsville. You're spending all the money to go up to Townsville, which is, so far away. You're getting the cars there. You're on track with the supercars. You want to prove yourself to the main teams. And you only get 10 laps of racing because someone's crashed here, or someone's parked the car in a stupid spot here, or someone's put on a stupid move and taking you out here. So, if you work out, your racing lap per dollar, it was a ridiculous amount, which is really silly to think about it. Whereas this year, I think at Townsville we had, geez, I don't even reckon we had a safety car at all this year. So the racing was a lot better, and the field is a lot tighter of a spread. So, those people that didn't really deserve to be there, that were a little bit reckless, they didn't qualify through the scholarship series. So, they were out. And then the people that deserved to be there were actually there, which number one makes it more competitive for the people that are there. So if you're doing well, it's even more reason, you know, to see that you're doing a good job.
Yep,
And then if you're not, well, you're reckless in the scholarship series, you don't make it in. It saves you the money of going to these 5 national events, and it also saves you the bother and the hassle of having to worry about a car coming behind you and wiping you out for some stupid reason. So
yep,
it's been really, really good this year. I think last year we literally had a safety car in almost every race, whereas this year we've had really none, or
yep,
like not many red flag. I don't even think we've had a red flag either. So that's been really good. Obviously, Bathurst is next week. We'll see how it goes then. I might be telling you
yeah,
a completely different story because that's a pretty crazy track. But I think the scholarship series has definitely been a good thing. And then as well, if you want to actually racing 86s, there's still some very talented drivers in the scholarship series that are also wanting to go up into the main series, but may not have the budget to go to those supercar rounds, and they can only do the local scholarship events, which is also a really good thing for
yep.
someone with a lower budget to be able to get into them and prove themselves.
Yeah, 100%. It's really an open door for everyone. And I actually do remember at Townsville last year there was a huge incident at the hairpin, the second last or third last second last corner. Not sure if they count the kink as a corner, but yeah, it was like the third
Yeah,
last corner and
yeah,
where the
I was in
hairpin
it.
is.
Yeah,
Yep. Oh, there
yeah,
you go.
yeah.
It's
So
like a
like that's just a prime example of a stupid accident, right? Like I think it was 4 or 5 cars, including myself, with big damage costing, tens of thousands of dollars, which is just really stupid because of a move in front someone put on. It was desperate. It was like lap 3 or something. and they turned around another car and then obviously caused a pile up in the tightest section of the track. So it was, yeah, stupid incident. Obviously, really annoying for myself and the others that were sort of innocent bystanders in it. We saw the car spinning, but we really had nowhere to go. So prime example of getting those people out that didn't deserve to be there, and really giving us a good field for this year.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like it's opened up a lot of opportunity, to show you guys what you can do now because, we've seen a lot of competitive racing and you've seen guys who have been mid-pack at the start of the year and now they're at the front or vice versa. So the category is really close. So it's
Yeah,
really good for everyone.
yeah, yeah. No, definitely. Like, there's people that have won races earlier in the year that are now qualifying 20th, or people at the start of the year that are qualifying 20th and now winning races. Like, as you said, it is a fantastic category and it is so close. One little foot wrong in qualifying or something wrong with the car setup or you're driving, and you're not going to be at the front. So that's really good. And I think it's made the series even better. Obviously, next year they're going to a new car, which should be interesting to see how that goes because obviously, the last however many years it's been since 2016 is when they started,
Yep.
have been awesome. But seeing how they go with the new car, I don't doubt it'll be good racing as well. But I'm just looking forward to see how it goes.
Yeah, cool as. And have you got a new car lined up and ready?
No, no. So I won't be racing 86s next year.
Oh,
Don't have anything set in stone yet. But for us, I think what we've done this year has been pretty decent. I think we've done a good enough job to hopefully be able to move on. But obviously, as you'd know, and as many people would know, it's all about your sponsorship budget and how you can get around that way. So it is tough. It was tough to not make the decision to buy the new car. But I think it's sort of a risk that we've had to take to see, how far we can step up the ladder and see how we go there.
yep. And for those who haven't been following your progress this year, how have you been going in the series? Where are you sitting in the championship? And have you won any races this year?
I haven't quite won any
Yeah.
races. I've been close a couple of times. So at Sandown a couple of weeks ago, we had 3 second places, which was, it's fantastic for
Mm.
points, but it's, you're always a little bit disappointed with second because you really want to win. It was really close. So that one, we had some good pace, especially the third race. I was all over the leader the whole race, and then unfortunately the race was called a little bit short because of a safety car, which robbed us of 2 laps and the chance at victory. But it's always one of those things where it goes, you could have won. Sitting third in the championship at the moment, which is quite good. About 120 points off of the lead, which is effectively, for perspective, I won the race and they DNF'd. I'd be 20 points behind. So it'd be very close then. It is probably unlikely that does happen considering what they've been doing all year. We've had good pace at all arounds, but I've made some mistakes. There's been things out of my control that have happened, all that sort of stuff as well. So Townsville, we qualified quite poorly. We qualified 17th. We managed to come third in the third race. So we worked our way from the back of the pack and from mid pack up to the front, which is really where we deserve to be that weekend. But also missed out on quite a few points in race 1 and 2 that realistically we could have had from that. Sydney, I made a mistake in qualifying. We qualified 24th. That was really hard. And then, we raced up to P6. So, it's good and bad. Like, again, points that we missed out on. And then Taylor Bend, it was sort of an average round for us. We were P10 in qualifying. I think we came sixth in the first race, fifth in the second race. The third race, we were running P3, and then my gearbox failed. So I lost all fourth gear. So then we dropped back to, P10 or 11 or 12 or something like that. And then obviously, yeah, Sandown, we had the 3 second places. So we've had good pace all year. It's just been a little bit unfortunate for us. But, obviously one more round to go.
Mm.
Still in the running points wise, but yeah, it's going to have to be a good one for us.
Yeah. And obviously, you can't deny you've not had the best of qualifyings. Do you think that's sort of like honestly, do you think it's sort of come down to you or do you think it's a bit of bad luck? Like is the slipstream huge in your category? I don't really I'm not
Yeah,
100% sure.
it's look like I can't really blame all of them on other things, but like Townsville, for example, qualifying 17th, that was completely my fault. That was just an error with my driving. Like we had practice too, and I was driving way too aggressively. So I was like for qualifying, all right, what do we need to do here? And it was like, well, you're over driving the car here and here. You need to back it off a bit. I backed it off, and I just backed it off too much and completely underdrove the car. So I had the opposite problem. And then Sydney, that was my fault. I went off the track and dropped the wheel. And then
Yep.
unfortunately something in the front end failed because of that. So that was a mechanical problem, which was my fault. A bit annoying that it broke in that spot, but it happened. It was my fault. Taylor Ben, P10, it was average. We didn't quite have the pace early in the weekend that we did at the end. So I think we found pace throughout the races. And then Sandown, it was what do I call that, seventh. So that was all right as well. So look, compared to where we are in the championship and where we've been racing, it's been hard. But
Yep.
there's always been these tiny little things that have hurt us a little bit. Sandown, I did get held up. But the crucial thing in 86s is your first two laps need to be your quickest. So if you're not switched on straight out of the gate, you're not going to be qualifying well. So you've got to jump in the car straight away. Your first flyer's got to be quick, second flyer's got to be quick. And if it's not, well, then, you pretty much cost yourself the qualifying
Yeah.
session because you're about half a second off each lap after that. So that's really been the struggle for us. I obviously don't like to think that there's qualifying curse. Obviously after qualifying seventh at Sand, and I was actually happy with that.
Yep.
Just because of some of the results that I obviously had earlier in the year. But I'm pretty confident with where we're at now. In terms of qualifying pace, so I'm sure we're up about this.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan, man. Is if you can sort of, just well, one thing I did notice is you've bringing points home, and that's what puts you up front of the championship. Like, if you can finish every single race in the top 10 in a championship, you're going to be quite a fair way up, which, surprises some when you go, oh, you're only finishing seventh, fifth, sixth, and whatever. But it actually puts you high at the championship because the winners are usually taking risks and coming off the
Yeah,
track and whatever. So it's
yeah,
actually, as long as you're bringing points home, it's actually really good.
yeah, yeah. I would say I've had a pretty unlucky year to be honest.
Yeah.
But to be sitting third in such a competitive category, I think it is pretty good. But as you said, it's all about consistency. You got to finish every race because the DNF just kills you in this category. And if you don't make stupid moves, you don't get penalties, you keep the car clean, you're going to be inside that top ten range. And
Yep.
obviously, you've got to have a team there to prepare the car as well and do the right thing so you don't have any mechanical failures. Which is another thing as well. You've got to be cautious of, but my team, Sieders Racing Team, they do an awesome job. So they've won the championship in the past with Aaron Borg. So wasn't a problem looking any further than an 86 team.
Yeah. I actually not too long ago I actually interviewed Ashton and his dad.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, had them on.
yeah,
Ashton's just getting into it now apparently. So yeah, he's
hmm
having a ball. But
yeah,
yeah, what's sort of the goal? Where would obviously you'd like to win the championship, but what's the goal for this weekend? And what are your future goals? Where do you want to be one day?
yeah. So goal for this weekend is I want to do the best job that I physically can do, which
Yeah.
is I want to qualify in pole and win all three races, right? Which is, it's an unrealistic goal, but that's what the goal is going into every weekend. I don't want to limit myself to coming top 10 or getting podiums. I like to set myself a higher expectation. And if I come second in three races again and I walk home disappointed, oh well, you still scored good points for the weekend.
Yeah.
So I always have a very high expectation. And I don't think it's unreasonable as well, considering, we've had pace at all the other events. So there's no reason why we won't have pace this weekend as well. So that would be the goal. Obviously, I can't control what happens with the other drivers in the championship. Obviously, they'd have to have some pretty bad luck or, make a pretty bad mistake to lose all those points to me. But, it is possible. It's Bathurst. Like last year in the 86s, there was a lot of people that were coming unstuck, even from the lead of the race. So, that's definitely the goal. I do want to win the championship badly, but I wouldn't complain too much with the top three. I'm just considering the field. And ultimately, supercars is the goal. That would be the dream. It's been the dream ever since I was a kid. As I said, going to those Adelaide 500 events back in 2007, 2008, 2009, watching the supercars go around, it was always my dream. And even back then, as a kid, knowing where I am now, I think I'd be pretty happy. But ultimately, supercars is the goal.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's an awesome goal to go for. And I'm guessing also you'd love to have a win at the Adelaide 500 because, it's your home race and
Yeah.
you've always gone there and whatnot. But yeah, what advice would you give to young racers who are up and coming and want to get into motorsport?
I think, have a look at where you're at. Obviously, different age levels are going to be different things. If you're, seven sort of thing, jump into a go-kart as soon as you can, get some laps going around, even if it's just a little cheap go-kart. You don't have to have the best equipment to have, number one, to have fun and also to be learning as well. So as long as you're going to the track and you're learning, well, then you're doing the right thing, right? Regardless of the equipment you have. So, once you do that, I don't doubt that, if you do it well, you'll progress into, obviously a team. If you're, the 14 sort of range, buy yourself a Hyundai XL, get into an entry level sort of category, and contact some friends' businesses or contact some families' businesses. Try to get some sponsors on the side of the car for a little Hyundai XL. Again, track days is very important. All that sort of stuff. You know, Seat time is the biggest thing,
Yeah,
especially when you're starting at that age. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people that are up and coming that have done a lot more than you. So the best thing you can do is jump in the car and drive it as much as you can, and all that sort of stuff. Try to get a feel of, the mechanical side of things as well. Maybe play around with doing some things yourself just to get a bit more of an idea on the car as well. So you understand, what's going on when you're driving. Obviously, looking up to some mentors is another important fact as well. So try to align yourself with a mentor, someone you can ask questions, someone you can send some footage to and go, hey, what can I do to be quicker here? That's really my advice for a young up and comer.
that's awesome advice, man, and I totally respect it. It's yeah, there's so many different ways. I ask that question to everyone, and you always get a different answer, which is awesome. But you were talking about sponsors being important. Have you got any sponsors or anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, G Technic definitely. So they've supported me this year as my major sponsor. You won't miss the car. It's bright red. It's got the logo slapped all over it. So yeah, massive shout out to them. Also got Financier, who support me as well. Obviously my family, my mum, my dad, my stepdad. I've got a lot of friends as well that are all commenting on my posts, and supporting me that way as well. So, even though that might not be a, financial sponsorship, it is still really good support. And that obviously doesn't go unappreciated. So yeah, all of my supporters, my sponsors, and my family, the main one, of course.
Cool. And thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Ruben. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience, or you pretty much all
Oh,
wrapped up?
jeez. I don't know. Just make sure you tune in and are going for the number 2086 car next weekend at Bathurst. That's about all.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ruben. I really appreciate it. And yeah, remember to everyone driving at Bathurst this weekend coming. Or actually, by the time this would be out, Bathurst would be done. But yeah,
All right. Well, that's all right. Well,
yeah,
hopefully we'll have a big number one then on my socials.
yeah. That's the plan. And yeah, remember everyone, drive fast and take chances safely, of course.